So Beth, a lot of people are looking at buying their first robot vacuum or upgrading their robot vacuum to a smarter one or coming back to robot vacuums after trying one years ago and being disappointed by it. And they're hearing that the new ones are a lot smarter. You review a lot of robot vacuums and mops for ZDNet. Are robot vacuums and mops really worth the money? And have they gotten smart enough to save people a lot of time? We know a lot of people are asking that question.
Yeah, a lot of people really are. And I think it's surprising how intelligent they have become, even just year over year or base model to high-end model, what the difference is in that AI technology and just how well it can navigate your home. Some of them are remarkably intelligent. Roborock is one that immediately comes to mind. It maps every single time, maps my house in 4 or 5 minutes. It just drives from room to room, very quickly scans around, and then just goes to the next one. And it has a very good layout for that initial map of what the rooms look like. And that's just such impressive technology. The new Roombas, they're saying can map your house. I think they say 80% faster than the previous models. And it wasn't a process that took long, but just going from one year to the next, how intelligent they're getting. Robot vacuums and mops are really just becoming top of the line, very intelligent, time savers.
So if somebody had one 5 years ago, because Roomba's been around for a decade, more than a decade. And I know some people who bought one and then they're like, oh, I did it. And then I wasn't happy with it. And so I just stopped using it. But if you bought one, you're saying even 2 or 3 years ago, the ones that are out now, especially the Roombas and Roborocks, and there's some other good ones out there because that you've reviewed. Mm-hmm. You're saying that these are a lot better. You should actually give it another look if it's something that you're wanting to use to save time.
Yeah. So look, when you think about how much time you spend vacuuming or mopping your house just on a weekly basis, my house, for example, we have 2 large dogs. We have an indoor cat. We have a baby who's starting to eat and in a high chair and making messes. When I think about how often I would need to clean with the super shedders and all of my hair, I have long hair, the time it's going to save you is just remarkable. So think about, even if it just gives you the smallest hiccup, everybody tells me, oh, it gets stuck in this one spot in my house. And so I just quit using it. It gets stuck one time and people throw in the towel. Man, all right, it vacuums for 90 minutes efficiently. And there's one mistake and you're annoyed. Think about how silly that sounds. Yeah, they're just so intelligent anymore. You can buy ones that have the AI obstacle avoidance. If you also need to make sure you know what you're buying. Some of them will point blank tell you it can't avoid things, and I'll get comments like that. Well, this didn't avoid, it ran over my cord and ruined it. Well, yeah, it doesn't have AI obstacle avoidance in it. So there are different levels to robot vacuums. And it's like phones. It's like a car. Anything you buy, there are hierarchies to it, and there are things they can and can't do. But the top of the line ones, Roomba can avoid up to 80 household objects. 80 shoes, socks, cords, pet waste. Dog toys now. My Christmas tree, it recognizes my Christmas tree. Just things like that. That's so incredible. And that AI technology, AI is constantly evolving. And right now we're in, Chat GPT is, you think about all of the changes that's made in the last year. Think about how that translates into hardware, such as, robot vacuums. Yeah, they're intelligent. They're impressive.
Nice. So you have people who also come into it with some unrealistic expectations sometimes with these robot vacuums and mops too, right? So, how do you approach that? You think about when folks are complaining sometimes about what robot vacuums can and can't do. it's not always a one-to-one on like a human versus a robot.
Yeah, well, when I think about it, if I want my robot vacuum to do a really good job, I think about what I would have to do manually to do a really good job. And a lot of my dog hair gets under my dining room table. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 dining room chairs. So that's 24 legs plus the 4 table legs. So that's 28 legs that you're asking the robot vacuum to navigate around. That's a lot, you know. Realistically, when I pull out my big manual vacuum, I'm going to move those chairs and vacuum underneath when I want a really good job done. So why wouldn't I move those chairs for the robot vacuum to do a really good job? Now, I won't, you know, when I go out, when my husband and I leave the house and we think, let's just have it go and clean. We don't pick up all the time. We have the dogs who are out. We have the cat. We don't want them to, you know, we don't want to mess up their flow with weird furniture setups. So yeah, there are some days that it is successfully able to navigate around 28 table and chair legs, but there are other days it might not be able to, and the vacuum itself might not have that technology. So yeah, I was on TikTok the other day and I was watching, someone was complaining about a Roomba vacuum wasn't as smart as people say it is. And they were panning around their house and it looked like, I mean, there were just things everywhere. And it's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do a good job with a manual vacuum with things everywhere because I'll pick it up and move it and I'll vacuum around it, behind it, under it, and then I'll move it back. Your robot vacuum can't do that, you know? And this TikTok specifically was like, well, yeah, it gets stuck over here because there's literally one way in, one way out. Well, I'd probably get stuck over there too. So some of the unrealistic expectations I mean, yeah, the technology's great, but they're not magicians, you know. They still have some flaws. Like they still have to be able to get in and out of places. So yeah, I do think some people go into it with a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. But if you go in and you're realistic about what it's going to do, I think you're going to be really pleased because at the end of the day, I always say what my robot vacuum cleans up is 100% of a mess I don't have to clean up. You know, even if it misses a little corner, okay, I still didn't do any of it. I clicked a couple buttons on my phone, sent it in the app, and it did all of the work. I didn't do anything.
Yeah. And do you run yours every day? Like what's your routine? You've tested so many of them. So you use them. You also sort of have these best practices. You and I have talked about this before because I've sort of not always had good luck, but sometimes it's more like I'm not necessarily, you know, have a great routine, or I have had unrealistic expectations too. Right.
Yeah.
So, but because you've been using them for a number of years, you've been writing about them and reviewing them for a couple of years, you've gotten to where you have a pretty good routine. You know, talk about how you manage your routine in working with robot vacuums and making them work so well. Because for you, obviously, you know, they work super well.
Yeah. So, first, I also have a baby to work around. So he's a pretty routine napper and sleeper. So I know at 8 o'clock when he goes to bed, I can run the robot vacuum on the other half of my house where he isn't. You know, I'm obviously not going to send it into his room while he's sleeping, and I'm probably not going to send it, you know, down his hallway where it can maybe run into his door on accident. So yeah, it's a matter of setting up a schedule that realistically works for you. So I clean the bedrooms when everybody's awake. We're up pretty early. So I think the first scheduled run is for about 7 a.m. I've had time to get up, make sure, you know, there's no like clean laundry baskets sitting around, just things like that. And then the robot just 7 a.m. comes, it undocks itself and it goes where it needs to and it vacuums, and that doesn't interrupt my morning. So that's another thing you have to think about when you're making these schedules is it going to interrupt me? And then when it's time to go to work and no one's out in the living room, no one's out in the kitchen, I think 9:30ish is when the next scheduled run goes. So you have to think about your lifestyle. You know, if you work from home, you're not going to want your robot in your office with you at 2 p.m. when you might have meetings. That would be silly. But I run mine every single day. I have a German Shepherd. He alone just sheds a ridiculous amount. And then some of the robots are even smart enough to pick up on shedding season. It'll recommend in the app, like, hey, it looks like you have more hair in your home than usual. Do you want me to run 2 times a day in this area and this area? And it's like, yeah, that's great. That's brilliant. But yeah, thinking about your schedule and what's realistic for you, and then just, do you have time to make sure that those clean laundry baskets are moved most days? Not every day do I have time to get in there and do it. That's fine. But if I want the room cleaned, I'll go pick up those baskets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I run them every single day. I think they perform better when there's not just gobs and gobs of hair. I think that's fair to say of any vacuum, even handheld ones.
Sure.
If it's a handheld one, you're probably going to make a couple passes if like, wow, this is filthy. I've not vacuumed, in a couple weeks. You'll probably, if you've got it out, you're probably going to do it a couple times. Well, you'd probably want your robot to go a couple times if it's been a couple weeks. But yeah, every single day, it just kind of goes from room to room, different times. The whole house doesn't get done all at once. It's just what's conducive to our lifestyle, and what interrupts our day-to-day operation the least.
Nice. So there are some consumables you have to purchase as well. And maybe we could talk about, we'll talk about mops in a second, but for robot vacuums in general, what are some of the consumables and how much do they cost? How often do you have to change them? What does that look like? Because it's a little different than now. Old vacuums used to have bags in them, but a lot of today's vacuums, you just have like a canister and you dump it out. So it's a little different today. So talk a little bit about that and what the process looks like there for people who are maybe just getting into robot vacuums or getting into some of these new ones.
Yeah, so most of them, if they have an auto empty base, have a bag, and it kind of ranges from 45 days to 60 days. But your particular home my mileage is going to be different from your mileage. Somebody who doesn't have kids and doesn't have dogs will probably see every bit of that 60-day limit, if not a little bit beyond, because you're not going to track in as much. I'm probably changing a bag at least once a month, if not more, especially during the spring and the fall when, the pets' coats are really shedding.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on, and this is, I would never recommend that you buy an off-brand one for your brand name. You're spending that money on a name brand machine. I would probably recommend sticking with what they make, but there are off brands you can save money. I think it voids a lot of your warranty doing that, but the bags are, I think last I saw you could get 6 bags for $20 or $25. So that's, 6 months.
And that's like Roomba or Roborock, for example,
Yeah.
the two most popular brands.
Yeah, and EcoVax is probably right in there with the same price. Now, I have seen some newer models and some of the lesser known name brands are starting to come up with auto empty bases that don't have bags. They're going back to that, just the bin.
Oh, interesting.
What I will say, though, about the bag is when you pull out the bag, it automatically closes and traps all of that dust in there. I do really like that about the bag versus my handheld vacuum that has that bin, and you're taking it and you're trying to dump it in your trash bag, and you take it outside so that so that all of that, I just vacuumed, I don't want all of that dust right back in here, but it's winter. Do I really want to go outside and do all of that? So there's some are transitioning a little bit to that. I haven't seen it on some of the, the higher end name brand ones. Personally, I don't mind paying for the bags because I really like that I can lift that little tab up, it closes the bag and none of it escapes. So yeah, you have that. And then all of the robots in the app, they're going to have a health tab where it's going to say, hey, your rollers have been used for so many hours. It's probably time to replace those. Hey, the filter needs washed. The filter needs replaced. But so many of these apps will tell you.
Nice.
Those prices vary. I would never pay full price for any of this. All of the brands, they always have accessory sales. And I think that's something to keep in mind. I personally never pay full price for them. I will just wait until there's a sale and then I'll kind of stock up. Do replace your parts. It makes a big difference in the performance. Some people get upset. Well, I've had this for 2 years and it's really declined. Have you ever replaced any of the parts? Well, no. Well, what's your filter look like? They take it out. There's 6 inches of dust on it. It's like, well, yeah, it's not gonna section anything up. Definitely replace your parts. You'll have to replace the bags, or it won't work. It won't ever auto empty, and that completely defeats the purpose of having a clean base.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you manage that process? What is your weekly, daily sort of process look like where, how often, and maybe we'll throw in mops here too. I think you use some of the 2-in-1s where that do vacuuming and mopping, and that sort of adds another layer for if you have certain surfaces, vinyl, hardwood, laminate, and you're doing those, then that adds sort of another layer to this as well. How do you use that? And maybe talk a little bit about the mops too.
Yeah, so I'll start with just kind of the everyday. The bags don't need changed until the app tells you. I don't worry about it. I don't think about it. When I pull the last bag out of my closet, I'll restock real quick, or I'll kind of make a mental note like, hey, you need to watch for a sale and buy some more bags. You don't have to do anything until the app says, hey, by the way, this is full, I'm clogged, can't do anything. So I never think about that. 2-in-1 machines. I want to be as efficient as possible. I work full time. My husband works full time. We have lots of things going on. We're very busy people. So however I can be most efficient in all of my everyday tasks is my goal. And so I know at the beginning of the day, if my 2-in-1 machine is going to run, I need to A, fill the clean water tank, and B, empty the dirty water tank, so that when it does go through its job, it's not sending me notifications, dirty water tank full, can't run anymore, or empty, or clean water tank empty, and then it's done mopping. That's going to annoy me that it's supposed to be getting this job done. I'm supposed to be coming home to a nice clean floor, but it ran out. So, I run it every day. I run it through my whole house. My house is tiled with carpet in the bedrooms, but I have a lot of rugs. So in order to have all of my tile mopped, I definitely want to make sure that clean water tank is full and ready to go, and that dirty water tank is empty. Could I probably push it a couple days? Probably. It's not really worth it to me to find out, like I want my floors to be clean when I tell it to go clean. So that's really, I think that's a very minor ask to do that daily. Because like an EcoVac 2-in-1 machine, you can set it in your app to go back every 6 minutes and have the mop pads cleaned. So think about all of the clean water and the dirty water that are going through, having those cleaned. Yeah. But I'm not doing that. And I really appreciate from someone who has dirty paws all throughout the house, no matter how many times I wipe them, I really appreciate knowing that every 6 minutes my mop heads are getting cleaned and it's going and just wiping everything down really well. So I think it's a very small trade-off for what you receive, but it is just one more thing you do have to keep in mind. But I guess when I would be putting together my mop anyways, I would be getting clean water for the mop. If I'm using my spin mop or if I'm using my steam mop, I'm getting clean water. I'm getting a clean head. I'm putting it all together. I'm plugging it in, like that kind of thing. So it's similar in a way.
Yeah. So this is one of the big questions that comes up a lot is
Mhm.
the different surfaces. So
Yeah.
having either just a robot vacuum clean different surfaces or a two-in-one robot vacuum and
Mhm.
mop cleaning, carpet, rugs, tile,
Mhm.
vinyl, laminate, hardwood, all of
Everything.
it. Like, can they do it all? And then how well does it really work? Because we know with a lot of products, if they try to do two different things, usually they don't always do both of them really well. What's your experience been with these two-in-one robot mop and vacuum combo units?
Yeah, so I would say anything less than 2600 PA suction isn't going to do great on carpet. 2600 or above is probably going to do really well. Um, I have a lot of ingrained pet hair in my carpets, and so you want that higher suction. Now, if you don't have rugs, if you don't have carpets, if you literally don't have any soft flooring, I don't think the PA probably matters all that much because it's just going to be, very easily suctioning things up off the floor. But for someone like me, there's an EcoVax, the Dbot UFI, I think is what it's called. It has an 8,000 PA suction.
Wow.
The Roborock S8 Pro Ultra has a 6,000 PA section. Does everyone need that? No, but is that incredible? Yeah. I love the 6,000. If it's super shedding season, I set it to max suction and I just let it go. Yeah, I want it all. I want it all cleaned. And for the different flooring surfaces, there are some that have recommendations and kind of their specialties. When you buy it, most of them are listed out. I've not really seen much of a difference. That suction power, usually 2600 or above, does fine on all different surfaces. My parents have laminate, and so sometimes I'll take a robot over there and run it on their laminate just to see how it does. And there's
Yeah.
usually no difference between my tile and their laminate. And then their carpet and my carpet, we have different carpet types. Usually not a lot of difference there. Um, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is whatever cleaning solution you might be putting in your mop or your two-in-one machine, you want to make sure it's compatible with your floors. That I would hate to see somebody ruin their beautiful hardwood floors because they use a cleaning solution that probably wasn't designed for that. So that's probably just every use case. Two-in-one machines, though, they so easily transition from one to the next. I will say two-in-ones,
Mm.
you get what you pay for. Um, I hate the idea of A, not having a cleaning solution, and B, not having a mop pad that does anything other than drag behind the the I don't know what those balloons. I don't know what I said.
That's the new Mac. Yeah, the balloons was our party for robot vacuums.
Yeah, I don't know what I said that
Being able to
triggered it.
do two
That's
in
so
one.
funny.
No, it's the new Mac gestures
Oh,
that it does.
I'll try to stop
Yeah.
talking with my hands. I
All good.
hate the idea of just this mop pad being drugged behind a robot with just water, no cleaning solution. It's not vibrating, it's not oscillating, there's nothing happening. What is that? It's just smearing my dirt from one end of the house to the other. That's silly to me. I love oscillating mop heads. EcoVax does this brilliantly. It has the two mop heads, they spin. There's a Bissell out there that spins like that. I think there's even a Shark that spins. I love that they rotate. EcoVax goes up to 180 times a minute, just scrubbing your floors. Roborock and Roomba both have ones that vibrate back and forth, so it's still getting some of that scrubbing in. I think that's brilliant. There has to be some type of manual work. There has to be pressure. There has to be something for it to get done. There are two-in-ones where you have to manually remove the mop heads for it to go to your carpet or to your rugs. And there are two-in-ones that either lift up the mop head itself, or Roomba has the retractable mop head. It goes literally from the floor up on top of the robot. So if you have anything plush, like really luscious rugs, that you probably want to go with the Roomba combo. If you don't, and you just need it to lift up a little bit. Roborock does that brilliantly. Ecovacs does that brilliantly. Or if you don't care to manually intervene, there are lots of options that don't have that technology. And those are all different pay scales. Like those are all different levels of intelligence and ability. So you got to figure out what works best for you and what, is that worth the extra couple $100 to have that lifts up? For me, absolutely. I have carpet in a couple of the rooms and I have rugs everywhere. I want it to be able to do that. The manual intervention is it's like I'm babysitting a robot. But if you don't have rugs, that's probably not an issue for you.
Nice. So one last question, then we'll talk about our recommendations. Mm-hmm. People ask a lot. Another one that's asked a lot is, what about pet messes? Will robot vacuums, just like if there's a mess in between the time that you saw, but before you saw it and the robot vacuum gets started, is it just going to smear it all over the place? Whether it's, cats, going to the bathroom or, hacky dogs, cats or dogs, or them hacking up. We know, like we both have pets, like they throw up, they go to the bathroom sometimes, all of these things. What about that? How does that work? And what's the difference between sort of some of the old ones and the new ones?
Yeah. So funny story. I actually know someone who had this happen to them. They went to the store, came back, horrific mess. They threw the robot immediately on the dumpster. They were just so mad. I can't say I blame them. It made just such a mess. So many of them now are becoming smart enough. They are set to recognize pet waste. Personally, and I'm going to knock on some wood, I've never had that happen while having a robot vacuum. My dogs have not gone to the bathroom inside, so I can't speak to that. I will say my cat one time did have a hairball, and I think it was my Roomba. Took a picture of it, sent it back to me, and said, "Hey, pet waste, I avoided this." And it avoided it. So that's great. Roomba has what they call poop. It's the pet owner official promise that it's not going to make that fatal mistake. It will avoid your pet waste or your money back. I'm not completely sure of the specifics for what that promise is. I think it's after like a year or something, but look into it. Roomba does have that. And Roborock is one who also is supposed to be able to recognize pet waste. If you have a senior pet, if you have a puppy, a baby, like a little itty bitty animal, I absolutely think that's worth investing in. My dogs they're not puppies, but they're not old either. They're definitely house trained. So that's not something I've had to encounter yet. I assume at some point that might come up. I hope it doesn't. But there are ones that can avoid that, because my friends, that was an absolute nightmare trying to get that cleaned. And that's just not something you want to endure.
Yeah. All right. That's an important one. So Beth, let's talk about the models that we recommend. You have reviewed almost every one of the major robot vacuums out there. There's a best list on ZDNET. There's multiple best lists on ZDNET of the ones that we recommend. But for people that are getting started or that are upgrading, what are the ones that you recommend? Maybe let's do first, like your budget. What's your budget recommendation if somebody just wants to get started? They don't want to spend $1,000 and they want to sort of give one of these a try. What do you recommend?
Yeah, if you aren't very tech savvy and you don't want to deal with an app, you don't want to deal with a docking station, you just want a robot that kind of bumps and flounders around and eventually gets things cleaned up, I love the Shark Ion. I think it's the A751. Suction's incredible. It's, I think, $130 typically. Wow. It's not smart. It doesn't have a map. It doesn't self-empty. It doesn't even have an app. You hit clean on top of the robot and it goes out and it does it. it just kind of bumps around my house. Sometimes it ends up on this side of the house, and that's just where it stays the entire time. Sometimes it ends up over here. If you run it every day, or if you even just like hit clean, let it do its thing, and then think, oh, wow, I never saw it in the living room. Go pick it up, move it into the living room, hit clean. For the most part, it's going to do a really good job. And I think I always recommend that for people with grandparents who don't want to be cleaning up after themselves, but probably also don't have an iPhone, or maybe shouldn't have an iPhone. I know sometimes trying to help my grandma was such a nightmare with phones. And so just something that easy that she could even have used her cane to like hit the button, she didn't even have to bend. Like she could have just poked it.
Yeah.
That's a really good option. Now, if you're a little more tech savvy and you're okay, you like that clean base, you're good with spending a couple $100. I think I've tested some Eufys, and I know Maria Diaz at ZD's also tested some Eufys. Eufys do really well. Find the one that fits your needs. They have 2-in-1 machines. They have single machines, just the robot vacuums. I'd start with a Eufy, and those are more of what I see college students have, or just married couples have Eufys. It's definitely a more affordable price range, and I think you'd be really happy with those as a budget one, but still getting those mapping capabilities and the auto empty base.
Nice. Those are under $500, right?
Yeah.
The Eufys.
Yeah.
Okay. And Eufy, for those who aren't familiar, Eufy spelled EUFY.
Yep.
So you can find those. Again, you can go to ZDNet's ZDNet.com and look for, or Google and look for ZDNet best vacuums, best RoboVacs.
Yeah. And then mid-range.
Mid-range. Yeah.
My favorite vacuum of all time, all time, is the Roomba J7 Plus. I just received the Roomba J9 models that's supposed to build upon the J7. The J7 is one that literally never left my kitchen when I would bring new robots in to test, because if they sucked, I was going to run my J7 Plus right behind it so that my house was still getting clean. It's brilliant. It auto empties it, and it's one that auto empties in the middle of a job. So it doesn't wait until the whole living room's done. If it needs to empty 5 times before the living room's done, it will empty 5 times before the living room's done.
Nice.
And it's brilliant. The AI is incredible. The app's pretty easy to use. I love the J7 Plus. Roomba's one that's almost always having sales, especially around the holidays. And now that J9 Plus model, now that the combo and then the flagship's out, these are going to be even cheaper. I think I saw the other day 500 or less for the J7 Plus.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that when it first came out? Remind us.
7
or 8? 7 or 8?
7 or 8. Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you can't go wrong with the J7 Plus. It's still in my kitchen. It still gets ran all the time. I love it. It's my favorite.
All right. So that's your pick really for kind of like best robot vacuum overall? Sure. Okay. Yeah, just to vac.
Yes. Just the vac. 2-in-1 machine.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat Roborock. The S8 Pro Ultra is the latest flagship device. It self-cleans, it self-empties, it self-refills, it dries so that the mop pad's not sitting there getting moldy, getting smelly. It's intelligent. It can clean in low light. It does a great job. 6,000 PA section. Phenomenal. If you want to save a few $100s, the S7 Max Ultra is very few feature differences. Very few. Personally, I would go with the S7 Max Ultra to save a few $100s. Right now, during Black Friday, almost every single one of Roborock's machines is on sale, including those 2 flagships. The S7 you can get for $950 right now. It's $350 off. If you like having a flagship device, if you want that S8 Pro Ultra and you look and the differences, it's enough to sway you to that one. It's $400 off right now. Perfect time to buy a Roborock. A close contender though is definitely an Ecovacs. The T10 Omni right now, I think was $550. I talked about those dual oscillating mop heads. It has that,
Yeah.
it self empties. My beef with Ecovacs is they make the largest, biggest, most in the way empty bases in the world. The
Mm.
T10 Omni was 52 pounds. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, no, it's massive. So I hid it in my laundry room so that it wasn't seen because it's big, it's obscure, like it's in the way, it doesn't blend
Yeah.
in. It's the first thing people notice when they come over. But if you can hide it somewhere, it did a phenomenal job. I loved how it felt walking around barefoot. It did such a great job cleaning. So if you don't want to spend the money on a Robo Rock, you're going to be extremely satisfied with an Ecovac as well.
Nice. All right. Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time. Really helpful
Yeah.
stuff to get everybody up to speed on what the new robot vacuums and mops, the combo units can do. And for more, people can go to ZDNet. They can look at our best list. You can go to Google and search Beth Mauder robot vacuums ZDNet or best robot vacuums ZDNet. You can do best Roborock vacuums on ZDNet, best Roomba on ZDNet. We have a number of other lists as well. We have them covered. And then you have individual reviews of them. So if people really want to know, is this the one for me? They can also see your individual reviews of each of these units too.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Jason.